Hi guys, I'm back from travels. I was to Poznań, Poland, to GAC Game Industry Conference, one of the biggest one in Poland, and it was really quite kind of cool. I met some really cool legendary guys, and if you've heard of the game This War of Mine, I got drunk with their lead developer again, because Polish guys just roll that way. Anyway, I've sent you lesson number 7, and this is a purport video. Basically, I think I explained everything quite clearly, because this part is where you prepare your readers to become also your players. So readers of books have different expectations in sense of course, obviously there are no choices in books unless it's a game book, and also pacing is different. Readers of book expect long walls of text, while gamers, even those who are into literally pieces of interactive fiction, also honestly don't like to read too much. And it even happens to me that sometimes if a piece is not really nicely written and gripping, I just skim to the choice, and that's why it's a good trick to sort of recap what the choice is about at the end of the page that deals with choices, if it's applicable to your game, of course. So let's see. You have themes, you have plots, you have characters. We've been through all the elements, and element we'll cover now are values and choices. And I mean values both as variables that you're going to use in your game, but also you have to think about, of course it will be easy if you know what your theme is, what kind of values your game supports, what kind of values your game explores, and yeah, we'll deal with choices first. So choices are very important because choices are only gameplay element often in the interactive fiction, and basically they dictate how your user is experiencing your interactive fiction as a game. So they expect the choices to be properly paced and relevant. Properly paced, it means that you don't have too many choices, because opulence of choices raises suspicion that these choices don't really matter. Also, opulence of choices sort of tends to kick you out of the immersion, because the immersion is achieved through writing and presenting your gamer, in this case, with the outcome of the choices. So it's a bit counterintuitive. You would expect that a lot of choices is better, but it doesn't mean so. You will use a lot of choices when you want to explain that situation is high energy, fast-paced, a fight or chase or something. But even then, sometimes it's better to make a nice description than to flood the player with choices. So basically, you will have to determine what is proper pacing based on the need of your story and the need of the energy of your story. If it's introduction, then go slow with paces. If it's towards the peak, some big conflict, then yeah, you can increase pace. About 500 words is one page on the screen, and that's about a good measure. Like every 5 to 1,000 words, you can safely place a significant choice. You can have some smaller choices just for flavor, but then again, just use them if you need to quicken the pace of the game. Don't put choices just because you've written, I don't know, 2 or 3 pages and you need some choice. Also, don't offer choices for less than half a page of text, because again, for players it seems like nothing really happened. I know it's crazy because a lot of things can be packed in under the one half of the page, but as I said, writing for interactive fiction is also coding the player's perception, so you have to have this in mind. What does it mean, relevance? So, as Hitchcock said, drama is life with all the dull bits cut out. Similar is with games. So we want all the dumb and irrelevant things cut out of the story. So if your game is a or some action or history or I don't know, some drama, don't make player make the choice, if they want to go pee or not. But if it's a slice of life game, if daily routine is important So then, yeah, of course, make him, make coffee and breakfast and stuff like that. So basically, the choice first has to be relevant to the context of your story and what's going on. Then, very important a bit of relevance is making choices informed. So that's why you go easy with choices in the beginning, because you don't want player to choose without any information to go on. If you ask such choice from your player, they will save game, make the choice, reload, make another choice. And that kills immersion. You don't want to do that. You want your choices to be well informed for the player, to come after being relevantly informed. So tell them honestly, all the info that they need to know or they could know. Remind them if they've forgotten some detail, and make the choices that will be that they will feel is the best choice they could have done. Also, as someone, this is the moment, like, what if you want to plant an ambush in a choice? That's very tricky to pull off, because generally speaking, players don't like to be ambushed in this way. Like, they make the best choice and then turns out some shitty things happen. They see it as a bit of cheat. They don't like it. Ask any game master and his players, like, they do their best and then game master said, well, you failed. So this is not really good thing to do. If you need to fail a player somehow, make it a blast. A player needs to feel good even if they made a fail, even if the character dies. It needs to be like going with the bank. It needs to be really a fun experience. So, for example, I will again give you examples from these two games, Diaspora and Highway Wars. And by the way, a disclaimer, Highway Wars is not poorly written. The writing itself is quite decent. And also in Diaspora, writing is nothing spectacular. It's made by two amateurs and it flows nicely, but it's not like, wow, a super piece. What makes these games good or bad, in my opinion, is that Diaspora adheres to a lot of what I've explained to you so far, including this part about the choices and values, while Highway Wars obviously is a bit of mess. It's not entirely their fault, I must say, because Highway Wars was trying to pull off a character-based story, and I'm not sure the writer knows exactly what are the rules of the character-based story, so it's sort of hit or miss. So, for example, Diaspora gives you one page, and after one page, you're not really fully informed. You're seeing some elements that you're not really sure what they are. By the way, you can find out about them before making a choice, because they left some codex, like explaining a bit about world building, which is nice move. But anyway, if you just read and don't pay attention to these extra materials, you're fairly informed. But then again, the choice is not about some huge decision, or it's just about your stance, like what do you think will happen. And again, if you check the stats, you'll see that two stats sort of just flag somewhere in the game that you're going to make this kind of stance. Only one of the choices actually changes your stats. So that's a good example. Like, take it easy in the beginning. Don't make them, enter a huge fight, or I don't know, do some crazy stuff they're not sure if it will kill them or not. So slowly. Well, the second game, the problem with the second game is that it flushes dozens of questions before you, and you're not even sure what are the relevance of your choices. Like, is there any relevance to picking your nationality, or your name, or how you look? So they sort of combine things relevant to the story and things relevant to the game, and mix and match. I'm not sure it's a good way to do. If you're going to do it that way, like create your character through the story, then you have to do exactly the same thing that Choice of Dragons did, and that's like the wording of the choices is really good, and the passages that introduce you to the choice are really good and in character and in the story. So basically, it's like being interviewed a bit, what they did in Choice of Dragons, but even more so. They really immersed you in this character creation. Highway Wars sort of presents you with blunt game design elements, combining it with the story as they go along. And if you need to know some things before the game starts, ask them before the game starts, before the story starts. If you need to know who's the character, if the player can create their own character, do it before the game starts. Don't do it during. Or if you want to weave it into the story, then you have to extend it through the whole of exposition and to write it hellishly well, to keep the immersion. So that's something to keep in mind, and it's not in the text. So meaningful choices are also important for relevance. Meaningful choice means that the choice will have meaningful outcome. That's why you need to have clear goals about each episode, so that you can know what choices are going to make which outcome. And also a good example is what they did in Diaspora, that no choice feels wrong. The players also don't like this, like, oh, 3 choices, one is good, one is evil, and one is neutral. You can't really make all this kind of decisions all the time, because it's too dramatic. It's kicking them out of the immersion. They want to win. They're gamers after all. So basically, try to introduce as early as possible to them that every choice is fun, that every choice is okay, that there's difference between choices, that they're relevant in sense that, yeah, if you pick something to do, then it will happen in the world. So that's very important, this impactful part of the meaningful. So it's not only the choice is relevant and meaningful, but it also feels impactful, like you did something that made a difference either in your character or in the story. So basically, yeah, consistency is another factor. So consistent writing and consistent choices, yeah, with some breaking the mold. For example, consistency mostly pertains to what you asked for a player to decide is what happens. In Highway Wars, there's a really nasty situation when you're approaching some damaged car and you pick the wisest, safest choice there is, and yet someone dies, and it's like, fuck, don't make the choice safe and then mess it up for players. Let players make a string of decisions that it's clear that they messed up, if you want them to mess up or to lay trap for them. But basically, the wording of the choice has to be true to the outcome. Players don't like the choices which are really ambiguous, like what's going to happen. Sometimes, yes, not often, not all the time. You're going to scare them into saving game and trying both or all the choices offered, and that's bad because it kicks the immersion out of them. So consistency is also important because it helps you set the pace. For example, in Diaspora, they really have this similar, like, always offering you 4 choices, and one is the diplomatic solution, the other is some tricky solution, the other peaceful or war like. So we always have like shades of choices for scaling from aggressive to peaceful, and it's consistently asking you, to bring these similar choices. But the good part is that sometimes there's like completely different thing going on. For example, they have this time cave spreading that you can make a break and explore a bit and pick up info and talk to your characters who are friends. So yeah, do that, change the pace, mix and match. And basically they did like one such change of pace per chapter, which is quite good. So yeah, like when a big storyline or significant storyline ends, give player a rest before they continue. So choices is the only gameplay your story has. Use them wisely. You're working on a piece of interactive fiction. So choices should come easy for you if you've developed nicely the episodes and story branchings and everything. And also, when you learn about values, it will also make more sense. But I cannot overstate the importance of really crafting good choices, because they're like really a rhythm, a pace of your game. So values are numerical expressions of your story and your team and plot. As you can see, because this engine allows you to see the stats, diaspora is story about the tribe and their struggle, where they're going to be, keeping to their old ways, aggressive, or adjusting to new ways of new situation, become completely peaceful, and or something in between. And the statistics, the attributes, the values they used reflect this. You have 3 skills: diplomacy, intimidation, and fight or something, and then you have stats like strength, charisma, intelligence, that are sort of somewhere in between. So basically every value revolves around the theme, which is like, is the aggressive, keeping to the old ways good, or is a change good or not. Also what they did is that, like, consistently through the game, there's no wrong way. So opinion of the writer is that, yeah, you win some, you lose some. If you stay aggressive, you're probably not going to survive for too long. If you go totally peaceful, you're probably going to lose a bit of your identity. So the writers didn't give you like, oh, this is the right way to go and this is the wrong way to go, which is really commendable, because you want your players to choose, to enjoy their choices, and play the story through. These black and white sort of values are not really they're not really gripping for the player for too long. You can make some drastic, ambiguously or moral choices in the beginning, or before the peak or after the peak, but don't shower player with moral choices like, oh, do I kill the kitten, or I don't know. They know what's good or what's bad, and there will be other ways for them to express their moral stance. So again, use the compass to determine what kind of values you want to promote or punish or to explore, and try to keep the list short. Use only the most necessary valuables. If you shower player with variables, that can be like cool, but interactive fiction is not really about cool. Other games can do like get away with cool, like, oh, do you want to have a cool gun, or do you want to look cool, because it's visual. And in interactive fiction, you only have words, and you have to use them wisely. And so don't overburden your game with unnecessary details. There is a game, I forgot the name, but it's some sort of a crazy adventure game, and it keeps really detailed stats like how big are your tits if you're a girl, or these kind of things. But they really use it in a story. Like it's not like, oh, there's a stat for players to giggle or something. So basically, if you're going to have a stat in a game, you have to use it. And this Highway Wars uses a lot of stats, and it's not that long game. So I'm not sure what did they think, how would they use all the stats. So basically your homework will be to examine your story and your episodes, to list the values you want to use, and to create choices. You don't have to create choices for entire game, because guys, we are closing to the moment where you will start writing. But pick an episode, define a goal, define values you want to use, define rough possible outcomes, like what do you want to be outcome of this episode, possible outcome, and then pick it's called choice station. Like whenever there is a story and then choice presented, that's one choice station. So like for example, within an episode you may want to have only one choice, 2, 3. If you're gonna test something in an episode, I don't recommend more than 3 choices, because once is random, twice is like maybe but not really sure, and 3 times if you repeat and get the same result, that's the conclusion. So if you test something in the episode, use the 3 choice stations. But you can use as many as you think is possible, is necessary, and you will decide if it's necessary by what's the goal of your episode. If the goal of the episode is complex, then you probably need more choices. And yeah, it also helps if you sketch visually these choices, and I suggest to use Twine because it's really quick to make choice, and you can really nicely arrange the branch of the choices and see, you know, what goes on. Yeah, see you later. There's another lesson, another video, and then you graduate. Stay cool.